What was the one thing you tried out due to fear of missing out? When I was a kid at school, older neighbour kids, also young kids, told me to eat grass. I of course didn't want to, so they told me they all did, and I would be cool if I did. So I picked a big handful and ate it while everyone laughed at me. Afterwards it came out that none of them had, in fact, ate any grass at all. And as it turns out, none of us knew what would happen if one were to eat grass. So I ran home where my old man was in the backyard spraying something with a garden hose or some shit. I said, "Hey Dad, what would happen if someone ate a big handful of grass?" He replied, absolutely deadpan, "Tell me you didn't eat grass." I said, "Well, no, but someone else did." And I was just, he said, "Gristle, tell me you didn't eat grass." Tears started welling up and I said, "Well, I was running real fast and I fell, and when I fell my mouth landed on the clump of grass and my mouth closed on it and I accidentally swallowed a whole bunch of it and am I going to die?" He said, "Probably, but go in and drink as much water as you can stand and then I'll take you to the hospital." I ran inside and drank as much water as I could and rushed out to the van where the old man was waving me into the open door. We flew out of the neighborhood, screaming towards the hospital while I cried in the back seat. Finally, we got to the liquor store down the street from the hospital where the old man said, "Nah, I'm just messing with you. You'll be fine." And he went in and bought beer and we drove home. Ah yes, the old "I tripped and it just happened to land that way" story, a classic. We get a lot of those in the ER. This is beautiful. I can relate, yet on a much dumber peer pressure level. I was so naive and was shown some crystallized marijuana in French class by one of the cool kids. I asked what it was and what you do with it. I was told you snort it. So there is me in the front row of desks during French class snorting this so-called crystallized marijuana. Upon doing it, everyone was freaking out. It turns out there is no such thing as crystallized marijuana, and it was in fact fertilizer someone had brought in for someone to put in their dope plants at home. So there's me panicking and thinking I'm going to die. Next class was science, and I asked the science teacher what would happen if they snorted fertilizer, and he said they'd be a fucking idiot. Everyone turned around and said, "Flaps McGee is a fucking idiot." I went to Easter Island. I was already in Santiago for work when I learned that it was the only place that sent flights there. I figured it was as close as I'd ever be, and I didn't know if or when I'd ever revisit Santiago, so I took the leap and did it. Totally worth it. I've always wanted to go there. How was Easter Island like? Did you see the moe? I rented a car and drove around the entire perimeter of the island seeing moe statues at various locations. It was really incredible and the island was beautiful. How many days would you recommend staying there? I'd love to do this someday. I was only there for about 24 hours total, and that was enough time for me to see just about everything. It's a very small island. Thank you for your insight. I can't wait to visit one day. I rented a room from a very sweet woman who spoke as little English as I do Spanish. We struggled to communicate, but were able to figure it out. The restaurants on the island were mostly seafood places, but I'm a vegan and really struggled to find a meal. I ended up eating a bag of potato chips, an orange, and a couple of bananas. Definitely not my finest dining experiences, but I was just happy to be there and grateful for the opportunity. I went for 5 days and felt it was like the perfect amount of time. We were able to take our time enjoying the sights, avoid tour groups, and get several of the sites to ourselves off and on. Also, there is a really great beach with moa where you can just relax, lounge on the beach, and eat at some of the restaurants right there by the water. There are also a couple of really nice hotels on the island, which adds to the experience. Having more time on the island will also give you a chance to enjoy the local town. I highly recommend booking a reservation in advance to Cataro for a really unique experience. This guy serves something like 10 people a day. He makes everything himself and he creates the menu based on what fish he has that day. He also built the restaurant himself on his property and it's really cool. The food is absolutely phenomenal. Don't be put off by all the rules he put on his website. It's a really great experience. There's also a small brewery on the island and they do tours. One of the brewers walked us through the whole process and led a tasting. Every tasting was an entire beer split between my partner and I. This place is awesome. If you ever get the chance, Easter Island is truly worth the trip. Watching the sunrise at Tongariki is a life moment I will never forget. Check out Birdman. There is this little island where these birds used to nest once a year. The whole of the island had a bunch of tribes, and each year they designated one of their men to scale the cliffs down, swim across shark-infested waters, then climb the little island to wait for the bird's egg. If they get it, they then have to fight off the other men and still be able to get it back to the lookout. Crazy shit. And this dude would sit there for weeks and watch it all. If you're the first to bring back the egg, well, just read about it. Fascinating stuff, and when you're there and seeing what they had to do, it blows your mind. So is this a show, documentary? Can I get a little more assistance and check out Birdman? It's a ritual thing of a long dead cult. There's literally nothing special to see if you can't time travel. But Rapa Nui, while small, isn't tiny. There's plenty of normal touristy stuff to see and do. While the beaches are rocky, the landscape is mostly hills and grass. The wild horses are mean, and for some reason it's super sunburny. The stray dogs are nice. I'll have to keep this in mind next time I just happen to already be in Santiago for work. Same. But if I could count the number of times work has taken me to Santiago with my thumbs, I'd be missing 2 thumbs. Bucket list for me for sure. Awesome you got to experience it. My brother married a woman from there, so we all headed out for the wedding. Most expensive trip I've ever made, haha, but such a great place. Oh, if this counts, then I'm screwed. I don't really count myself as having FOMO, as I just do things, but in this sort of situation it makes sense. Only reason I've ever been to Comoros is because I was in Madagascar, and it seemed a shame not to. Only reason I was in Madagascar was because I was in Mauritius, and it seemed a shame not to. Well, that time I planned a trip to Portugal and ended up in Suriname, Mauritania, Kyrgyzstan, amongst others. I was there about 12 years ago. It really is a surreal and magical place. Incredible experience. Easter Island is on my bucket list. Ever been to Santiago, Chile? Twice last year. I'd been there for about a week before hopping over to Easter Island. This was right before all the protests that broke out there.